Hey everybody, it is Mike Bruce again with Life Starts with Food, and I am here today with a guy that I'm always excited to talk to. His name is Gary Greenfield, and he owns a company called Greenfield Water Solutions, formerly Greenfield Naturals. And Gary, if I'm not mistaken, you got started about 15 years ago with water, right?
With water in 2009 and nutrition in general in 2005.
Yeah. And you really have you're a lot like me, or I'm a lot like you, I should say. When you find something that you like and you want to know about, you dive in and you dive in deep. And I remember reading part of your story. Something that really resonates with me is you started when you used to have a coffee shop and you brewed your own coffee. You would notice the better the water was, the better the coffee was, and that was at least partly a big start of your journey. But something I always like to share with people is you are also a godly man, and nothing on this planet is an accident. So I love that you have that I've somehow found my way into your good graces to be able to talk with you and use your products. But go ahead, tell us a little bit more about your coffee and how that helped you find water.
Yeah. Well, coffee was something I got into because I had been in a business that dealt with government a lot, and I didn't like the regulations. I didn't like the inefficiency of it all. So, and I had some bad experiences. I had a private ambulance service, and I was competing with the fire department. It got kind of dirty and for years, and finally I got tired of it and finally sold it and got out. And so I was asking myself, well, if I could do anything, what would that be? And I thought I'd want to do something that isn't conflictive, doesn't deal with government, just makes people happy. And in doing that, I found that I loved working with coffee. I got into coffee, got trained, and it was I just was in my element. I just had a blast. I had fun. And I was making people happy and not causing any problems. So, any conflicts. So that's how I got into coffee.
Yeah. And you have, speaking of, I mean, I'm not going to go into any of your history, but I've heard any more of your history, but I have heard you on a couple interviews speaking of just all the things you've done in your life. And I think too few people my age and younger have ever even met someone like you. You know, we have that wacky uncle who has a lot of fun things he likes to do, but that wacky uncle is never successful. You, and I'm not calling you wacky.
Sorry, I probably am.
But you're that guy that you've researched and done things, and when you want to do it, you see an opportunity and you go after it. And so you're a very driven guy that does. You might see something on the fringe, but that's okay, because you're going to figure out if it makes sense and if it works for you, or you're going to see that opportunity that not everybody would take because it's risky to others, but you see the upside as being better for you because you are kind of a strategist, it seems like, and you think things through so well. So go ahead.
Oh, I'm not. I was just breathing.
So let's just jump right into to the water. You, with all this research you've come up with, I know from talking to you, you've told me that there is massive importance of water, and it was you that kind of talked me through the right type of water for my household, and not every water is the same. So can you kind of talk about the importance of water in our life and the differences?
Sure. I think water is a lot more important than even we're taught. I would call it the hidden science of water. And I think if it was opened up to us more, things would just be more clear. And I think we could have a healthier lifestyle. And what I mean by that is that I believe water is actually the fuel source for the body. I don't think it's glucose. Glucose I see as the biomass. It's a building block. Mm-hmm. And something that science doesn't identify is the presence of melanin in the body as being the water splitter. Melanin is throughout the entire body. It's everywhere in the body. And that melanin it has multiple functions, just like everything. Everything that God made in nature has multiple functions. Nothing is just very simplistic. I mean, it's simplistic, but it's complicated. It's both. Yeah. And melanin is used to split the water molecule. It's like water goes in, in a in a liquid form, but it's comprised of two gases, oxygen and hydrogen. When those atoms come together or molecules come together, they create a liquid. Well, once that liquid is in the body, it's like that's the way the body, the energy is carried into the body. That's the way the elements are carried into the body or into any cell or into any animal, plant, or anywhere in the environment. Well, once it's in the body, the melanin works effortlessly using EMF, broad spectrum. It uses the entire spectrum of EMF to split as an energy source to split the hydrogen and oxygen. And
so real fast. So melanin, you're talking like what makes us tan, right?
yes,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
it has
really
multiple
cool.
purposes.
Yeah, and then the EMF is electromagnetic frequencies.
Yes.
And that's near and dear to my heart because I'm a bit sensitive to unnatural EMFs, but the natural stuff is what sort of heals you from that issue. But
Yes,
but yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So, anyways, so melanin at room temperature splits the oxygen and hydrogen, which is something that a water ionizer does. They're very popular. Well, what are they doing? They're literally splitting the water molecule, but they're using high temp, electricity, electrical arcs that are between around 1500 degrees to split it. Well, that's man's way of doing it. God's way of doing it, the way the body does it. It creates more energy as a result. When it's split, not only does melanin split the molecule, but it also brings it back together. And both functions create energy. And that energy, the hydrogen molecule, when it's split off from the oxygen, it's the lightest element known, and it will pass through any membrane effortlessly. So and I believe that is the fuel source that drives everything in the body, every process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting because there's a lot of research done on hydrogen-rich water, and you and I have spoke on that before. And I know for me personally, when I've had stomach issues in the past, by taking hydrogen-rich tablets in water, and it's your water, of course, which is neat. And when I've added those hydrogen-rich tablets, it has definitely helped my stomach issues. And thankfully, that's helped heal a lot of stuff. But your goal is always to do that more natural. And I think it's so neat that we don't look at the hydrogen molecule as fuel. We're looking at, like you said, sugar and fats for fuel. That's so interesting. I never knew that the melanin split it like that.
Yeah. Well, it's something it's been proven. It's in a book called The Human Photosynthesis, written by a Mexican researcher, ophthalmologist. And it's not a theory. It's proven. He's proven it factually. And it was proven 20 years ago, but to this day, it remains hidden. It's just not acceptable. It just shows how indoctrinated we are into our belief system, that we're taught.
Yeah, certainly. Well,
Yeah.
I know you said it's the kind of the hidden science of water because even Dr. Pollack, he's been a lead researcher in water for 40 or 50 years now, and he's proving things left and right. And just because somebody who's researched water for a few days, that they might be a researcher in some other category, they just say, nope, we're not going to even do the science. You're wrong. And it blows you away that they can just be so abrupt about that. So, so another question I wanted to ask you, because this is really important to me, because when I research filtration, air filtration, water filtration, certain foods, I want to know, just because it's filtered, for instance, for water, just because it's filtered, does that mean it's healthy? Like because what are the different types? There's the when you pull everything out of the water, that's a it's one of the under sink filters that does it. Just
you mean reverse osmosis?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, reverse osmosis just strips everything from the water and makes it super pure. But pure doesn't mean good. Well,
it's pure in the modern sense of man's definition. It's not pure in the sense of how God created it. Pure water would be water that's in a state free of toxicities, which might be energetic or physical.
Yeah. So it's sterile.
Yeah, I would call it. It's stripped.
Okay.
Of every. It's just stripped of all of its nutrients. The elements are nutrients. When you take those elements out, we see them. They just throw everything out. They identify toxins and elements. They don't acknowledge elements as being nutrition. There are those out there that would say, oh no, we don't get our element, we don't get our minerals from water, we get it from our food. Well, or you've got to get it from an organic source, plant source, rather than inorganic, which is water. Well, that's false. I mean, you get it from both. You get it from plants, but you get it from water too. Water is extremely important.
Yeah.
As an element, as a carrier for elements into the body.
Well, all of our food, if it is real food, is made up of water. So unless we've actually decided that it doesn't take water to make any of our food nutrient rich or mineral rich, then how the heck are we supposed to know that? Magnesium would be considered, would that be considered an element or no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Magnesium, as a matter of fact, magnesium and calcium are the two most important elements in water that the body requires. It's been proven that when those elements are taken out, it contributes to decreased life longevity, and it encourages heart dysfunction, because the magnesium and the calcium are the yin and the yang, the relaxer and the contractor. That's what causes that motion, that contraction and expansion. Those two elements working together.
Okay, so those are the things that can help pull the water in and out and through cell membranes and things. That's a pretty important part of life.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And so let's see. We were talking about natural EMFs. Can you kind of explain natural EMFs a little more for us? Because we were just touching on mineralization. And does mineralization and natural EMFs, do those go hand in hand, or are they just intertwined?
Well, yeah, and minerals are a compilation of elements. Elements are the basic building blocks for all material forms, and light, or electromagnetic frequencies, is the base. Light is the energy source, and just as light can be broken down to different frequencies, that, for instance, when you look at the electromagnetic frequency spectrum, it goes from radio waves up to beta waves. Mm-hmm. And that's the entire spectrum of frequencies that manifest themselves as light, that's different manifestations of light. In the same way, all the elements are really water. It's hydrogen, but they manifest themselves in all the hydrogen water manifests itself in all of the different elements, because hydrogen is the building block for all of the elements of the periodic table. So to take it down to its most basic form, it's light and it's water. Those are the two. Those are the resources necessary for life as we know it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and something that you've spent a lot of this time researching about the water is actually the structure that the water can be in. So we always just think H2O, and I was reminded listening to a podcast last night that there's like a dozen different formats, like H3O, H2O. Well, I'm going to get them all wrong if I start babbling them off, but there's all different forms that water resides in, that water resides, just with different molecular combinations. And so something that you've found throughout all of your research is, I guess, one of the ways of calling it is structured water. And can you kind of explain what structured water is?
Yeah, well, it's a definition we came up with, which actually just defines water in its natural state. And before the modern era began, we didn't have to define water as structured or not. Water was water in its natural state. Yeah. What affected water, what has brought water into an unnatural state, are chemicals, dams, pipes, pumps, our modern technologies. Mm-hmm. And what they do, they destructure water. What that means, structured water is like informational water. It's water that is, it's full of energy. It's like a body. If you look at a bodybuilder, he's structured, right? Well, yeah. What makes him structured? It was a proper movement and nutrition. That's what gives structure to the body. That's what gives structure to water, because really what you're looking at in any of us is water, and it's what happens to that water, the energy in that water that creates the interaction with the muscular tissue to create the structure. So when water is structured, it's filled with energy, and it's gone through a proper movement.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. So kind of compare the bodybuilder to Homer Simpson. You know, Homer Simpson does not move. He puts all the wrong things in his body. So, and he is the wrong shape. And so I know from a little bit of research I've done that structured water also, they call it structured partly because it is actually, if you were able to look at it at the, it forms almost crystalline structures, whereas water that's been unstructured, kind of stripped down, it's in a more chaotic.
It would be in a collapsed state. The molecular angulization, they can measure it. And when it's structured, it's expanded. It's like the hexagonal. It goes into a hexagonal shape. Yeah. And that's the perfect storage form. That's what beehives are made of. The hexagonal structure. It's a perfect storage form for honey. In the same way, the water takes on that same shape when it's in its energized structured state. So when water goes through vortexing and when it's exposed to all the beneficial energies, in the environment, it becomes structured or expanded, and so it's a perfect carrier for energy, for maximum amount of energy.
That is so cool. That's like just to think just the form of water, and so how does, I know you said it's through natural EMFs and mineralization, but I know you're always, just in life in general, any conversation I've had with you has been about mimicking nature, the nature that God created. So by mimicking nature, you said spring water would be naturally structured water before we screwed with it and messed with it and put it through all these devices. So spring water, and I guess what happens in a spring or a creek is it's coming down a mountainside or under the ground, and it's swirling and vortexing. It's passing across rocks that have extra mineralization, and it's passing through our the natural electromagnetic fields of the earth as it's coming out to the river or the creek itself. Is that right?
Yeah, and it starts, before that, the hydrological cycle starts with the evaporation of water into the atmosphere, and it leaves behind all the solids. And then as it's excuse me, being evaporated, it's exposed to solar energies or stellar energies, and that energizes the water. It cleanses the water as well. And then that water collects that energy, and then it passes it down to the earth through lightning, which is happening tens of thousands of times, I think a minute around the earth. And then once it does that function, then it drops to the earth, goes into the ground, and as it's going into the ground, it's absorbing the energies from the minerals, and then it matures down in the aquifer. Then it comes back up. Of course, it's picked up by the plant on its way down as well, but other waters go down to the ground. Then they levitationally rise to the surface again, and then come out the springs. And once they're subjected to vortexing along that. Anytime water moves naturally, it's being vortexed, and then of course it comes down to the stream and the creek and to the river, and it's vortexed and exposed to more minerals, and it's maturing all along the way.
I love that when you actually look into what goes into water becoming water, and then there's still people on this planet that say there's no God. It blows me away. That is so cool. And so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want you to talk about, so for instance, just recently, my friend Ed Green and we both got a structuring unit from you. I also, I think a year ago, almost to the day, I bought a filtration device that you had as well. And I just think it's the best. So like I have this sitting here. If I have some salt in there that's one thing I want to talk about. So hydration of water. How do you, because I've been in the situation where I am chugging water, just chugging it. And for some reason, it does not fill me up. I'm not satiated. And I keep chugging, and my stomach is just filling up and filling up. And you were the one that helped me with this. What is it that we can do that actually gets that water to absorb and stop just filling up our bellies?
Yeah. Oh, what I've found through experience and experimentation, through the years, mostly working with farmers, is that when we structure that water, which is simply to put it through a vortex device and expose it to elemental energies, it changes the dynamics of that water so that it's like, for instance, in fields, oftentimes the water will pool on a farmer's field. Mm-hmm. And we found that when we structured it, it didn't pool anymore. There were no mud puddles. It just absorbed right into the earth and went right down. And it didn't evaporate. Through other experiments, I found that I could take structured water and put it and expose it, to the environment. And structured water would go down into the ground, but unstructured water would evaporate up. And so there's an intelligence there, and that water knows when there's no energy in that water, it knows it's time to go up into the atmosphere. If there's energy in it, it wants to go down into the ground.
It's like it's wanting to either heal something else or be healed itself.
Right, and if it doesn't have a load to carry, we're short circuiting the innate intelligence or the programmed intelligence in water. It's not that water has a mind of its own, but it's programmed, it's pre-programmed. Yeah. And so it responds depending on its environment. And if we've short-circuited that water by de-energizing it and destructuring it, putting it through straight pipes and pumps, exposing it to chemicals and such, then it's in a state where it doesn't want to go down. It wants to go back up and get cleansed and get in the process, because it doesn't have any energy, or it has minimal energy to carry into the soil. So it doesn't want to go there yet.
Yeah, that is neat. That's so neat. So like quick advice for people that I'm going to give out right now is, if you want to get your water in a healthier state that absorbs better, and you don't necessarily have the means right now to get yourself a structured water unit, something you can do is get a glass jug and set your water out in the sunlight. That is natural EMFs that you're getting from the sunlight. And then also put a couple pinches of sea salt, like Celtic sea salt or red mineral salt, or one that you recommended to me a year ago was Baja Gold. So that's really high in minerals. You've had a great explanation for me before. It's just really high in a lot of the natural salts and things that we need in our body.
Yeah, well, it's got more of the elements in a more balanced state than any other salt I know of. Mm-hmm. It's got a tremendous amount of magnesium in it, which is one of the most important elements, and less sodium chloride. So it's a very good salt.
I used to see those water bottles that have like crystals and things in there. And I always thought that was so woo-woo and so goofy, until I started doing more research in water and in how elements and minerals passing over it, how that actually affects, and it draws in both the EMFs and the nutrients from those minerals. And then all of a sudden I found myself on Amazon looking for these crystal water bottles and things, because it just makes sense after a while. There's a reason that we're drawn to the colors of those certain crystals, and there's a reason that sometimes you just like to pick it up and put it in your hand. It's actually emitting something.
Right.
And that sure does sound goofy to a lot of modern Christians, but what's so goofy about God creating something on this planet that helps us? So
yeah, well, I mean, it's like the sun. The sun is a compilation of elements, and it's interacting with energy, light. And when I say light, I mean with the energy field, that's energy that's everywhere. And it's creating electromagnetic frequencies that enhance us, they contribute to hundreds of different beneficial processes in our body. And that's frequency.
Yeah, for sure.
And all elements put off frequency. It's their they all interact with light, and they create their own certain signature, and they're all beneficial in their natural state. And that's why today we have with cell phones and such, they're configured in a way that puts off an unnatural frequency. So it's like a musical instrument that's out of tune, and it's not congruent with nature or with natural sounds or energies.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put that. My wife, she can to get better sleep at night, we go stand in the grass barefoot before we go to bed. And in the wintertime, that's really hard here in Pittsburgh. But when she actually does that, as spring starts coming through, her deep sleep, we have, the rings that track our sleep and things, and her deep sleep increases anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour any given night. That's huge for her. She does not have a lot of deep sleep. So, and that's a natural way to reconnect with your EMF, with natural EMFs, and to exchange the extra energy that your body has with the earth, and draw fresh energy back into you, and sunlight. So takeaways from this is, if you want your body to create natural structured water in the body, get some sunshine. Go get in the sunshine. Put some sea salt in your water and let your water sit in the sunshine too. That's cool. Gary, do you have, I have your website right here. Let me bring it up so we can see this. So this is your website. This is the sales page, actually, or the product page. Let me get to
that's the old site. I've got a new site.
Here we go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So yeah, we have this one right here. This is the guy that I have on my. This is the structured water unit that I have for the whole house. And honest to goodness, when it comes to taking a shower, it's almost like it takes so much less scrubbing to get clean. And I'm not sure, from the research I've read, I'm not sure that the structured water actually makes it past our gut, but I know the rest of my body is absorbing water every time I'm in it, and I feel tremendously better from it. And what is your thoughts on if it's making it past the gut there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know there are scientists out there who say, oh, no, it's not, once it gets to your gut, it's destructured. That's not true. One of the primary purposes of water is to carry energy into the body. The reason why we vortex it is to enhance the energy uptake. And it's the energy that's in there that's going, that's going, it doesn't matter what it's subjected to in the stomach. That water is being absorbed everywhere. The frequencies in the water is being absorbed as soon as you start drinking it.
That's a great point.
And the other thing is that we know that something's happening in the stomach, because when you drink unstructured water, it just sloshes around your stomach. It takes forever for it to absorb. When you drink structured water, it absorbs immediately. You don't need to drink as much. Yeah. So that water is still, it's passing through the membrane of the stomach, and into the digestive tract and everywhere through the body immediately. And so we know it's continuing to be structured. Otherwise, it would act like unstructured water in our gut.
That's a great point. We just talked about that 5 minutes ago, and it was already out of my head, huh? And something else is, you have some because you work a lot with agriculture and farming all over the world, and you have had farms that have tried this just on half of their cattle, and then the other half left with unstructured, and half of their crops and the other half left unstructured. And you have some incredible photos. I know in the Pittsburgh area, this is probably countrywide, but we always say with corn, knee high by 4th of July. And you have corn that has got to be way higher, way better than that, which is just the coolest. So yeah, and I'm always amazed, every time I get a report from a farmer. It's kind of like babies being born, it's never like old hat. It's like obstetricians. They're always, it's a process that it's never old hat. It's always an amazing thing. And for me, every time I get a story from a farmer, it's like, this is amazing. This, it's just always exciting, encouraging. That's cool. Gary, is there anything you want to leave everybody with? Only that the most important foundational thing we can do for our health, I believe, and I think there's 3 things. One is to drink structured water. It's very, very important. It will give us, it is our primary energy source. 2 is to ground, because, and it's not only for the uptake of energy, it's grounding as a way to discharge waste energy from the body. And if that waste energy doesn't get discharged, it stays in the body and has all kinds of physical effects. It creates inflammation, makes us stiff, which is an indication of inflammation, and it has all kinds of benefits. But so it's a way to flush the toxic energy from our body, or the waste energy. And the same thing, water does the same thing. So in as much as we're taking good energy in, we've got to expel that waste energy. And water will benefit that process, whether it's through grounding or through drinking the water. Water is foundational to everything. Yeah. Then you said you had 3?
Oh, the third would be the Salt Soleil, the broad spectrum of elements that we can expose or that we can ingest each morning in structured water.
Yeah.
I believe that's a key component of giving us a balanced nutritional tonic every morning.
I love that a lot of the things I recommend to my clients and my patients at the doctor's office are all so similar to that. And it used to be, I care about diet tremendously. And I still think diet for a lot of unhealthy people is one of the fastest, most visible ways. However, when people just get out and put their bare feet in the grass, or if they buy a grounding mat for their bed, which can do similar, I don't think it's as effective, but it's pretty close. When these things are done, and when you get decent water in you and get the right minerals in you, unbelievable things happen. And Gary, I thank you so much for all that you shared today, and I thank you so much for all that you've helped me with through the interviews I've heard of you online and your son's podcast. He's a guy that I listen to and I learn a lot from, which really makes me think I'm learning a lot of that from you. So I know he's his own man, but I know he thinks a lot of you as well. So I greatly appreciate all that you do for this earth and all that you do for the people here, and for your love of God and the type of man you are. So anybody out there, if you're looking into water filtration, Gary is an incredibly, incredibly helpful resource. He can talk you through whether you need something on your house or not, if it's just maybe under your sink or on the shower. But his website is in the details below, and if I'm not mistaken, that is greenfieldwaters.com.
Greenfieldwater.com.
Greenfieldwater.com, and that is what I have posted below. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram. Those are both linked below. And Gary, hang on. I'm going to end the broadcast, but thank you so much for being here.
Okay. Thank you, Mike, for having me on.
No problem.